Hey, if you're an entrepreneur and you're wondering how in the world can you take back your time, how can you move from this like overwhelmed, like, man, I got so many things to do, I got this huge to-do list. How do I get freedom back? How do I get time back? You're not alone. That's something I've wrestled with. It's something my clients have wrestled with. So what I want to do in this video is just give you something that I've used that's been really helpful. And actually it's a stack of tools. So I'm just going to go through them really quick. Let's dive right in. The first thing that I would do is, if you're struggling with time, is create a dump list. Have you ever run Chrome and you have like 30 or 40 tabs open? Is it just me? And then, like, for me anyway, even with the M1 chip on my Mac, right, the wheel of death starts up, right? Because I have too many tabs open. And so that's kind of what happens to us mentally and emotionally when we are running too many open to-dos in our mind. Our mind is constantly, like, when we say we should do something, or when we put something in our mind of like, hey, I need to do this, I need to do that, we start to stack up this file folder in our heads. When that file folder gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're just holding it all mentally, it'll drain your energy. And so one of the number one things that you can do, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you need to take back your time, is to really just go through and dump everything out of that. Then go through the list and really prioritize. I'll sometimes use like a colored marker, okay? And I'll highlight the ones that'll take me 3 minutes. And I'll notice like, oh my goodness, there's like 10 things that'll just take 3 minutes. And then I just set aside 30 minutes and I knock all those out. And then boom, I free up all this memory. I close all those tabs. Some of them I'm like, oh, I don't need to do that for a month, and I delay it. I delete it. I find stuff on there like, nah, I don't want to commit to doing that. I thought I would, but it's actually not worth my time. I'm going to delete that. So if you have a team, you can delegate. So there's like the do, delegate, delete thing. But the main thing is to just get it out of you, get it on paper, just pulling it out of your memory and closing all those tabs is going to be really helpful. And then you can see it objectively and kind of sort it and prioritize it in your own way using whatever system you like to use. So if you haven't done that, I highly encourage you. It'll take you 5 minutes. Just do that. The second thing is completely a completely different process. So we're going to pop open our iPad. The second thing that we can do is using batching. So like, this is a huge thing. Now I'm assuming you already use like a Google Calendar and stuff. If you're not, you definitely need to use a Google Calendar and start scheduling stuff in. But batching, what is this thing of batching? As a business owner, you probably are in a whole bunch of different roles. So maybe you have client calls, maybe you're running your team, maybe you're doing some sales stuff. Whatever it might be, you have all these different roles. So I want you to imagine a flywheel, okay? So a flywheel is something that takes a lot of force or a lot of power to get it going, but once it's going, it maintains momentum fairly well. So the example, I think in Good to Great, there's a really good example of like the old flour mills with the huge rhinestones. And so in the morning, the stone is just sitting there, and you have to put on like, they had to put on like 5, 6, 7 cows on that stone to like push it, and then they get it going, and then the cows are walking in a circle, grinding the flour, and then eventually they're able to peel most of the cows off, and like 1 or 2 cows can just keep the thing going because there's momentum there. Now here's the problem as an entrepreneur. You are like just starting to get the momentum going on something, and then you have to unplug and plug into something else. So in a way, it's like you're plugging into this thing and then unplugging, and then this thing and unplugging, and then this thing and unplugging, and you're losing tons of momentum, and you're losing tons of energy, and your mind is like, boom. You feel like you don't have enough time. So if right now you're feeling like you don't have enough time to do everything that you want to do, one of my biggest recommendations is to look at your big responsibilities and to batch them. Try to create themed days. So for example, I have a day that I have themed for content creation. That's like the main thing I do. Like the day right now when I'm filming, that's like the main thing I do on those days. Whereas on other days, the main thing that I'm doing is talking with my coaching clients. And I have a couple days set aside for that. And I have another day set aside for other projects and my ability to think on those. So instead of like trying to do a little bit every day of all the things that I'm supposed to do, I really try to structure my day in themes. So if you're not doing that, I recommend checking that out and seeing if you can do that. So batching, that's what that word says. So welcome to my chicken scratching. So the third thing that I would say is the idea of the most important and the biggest things first. So we'll just say first things first. Now this seems like a really simple idea, but it's actually a pretty big deal. So I remember I was at a conference, I think it was Jim Rohn. I can't remember who it was, but I was at a conference and he was using an example of like, if you fill a pitcher full of sand and small rocks and then medium-sized rocks, then you can't fit in the biggest rocks. So I want you to imagine there's a pitcher, and you put in a bunch of sand, and you put in the small rocks, and you put in the medium-sized rocks, and now it's almost full, and then let's say you have these 3 big boulders, and you're trying to fit it in, and you can't, okay? That's how most people approach their life, and that's why most people feel like they don't have time. So if you're feeling like you don't have time, let's switch that, okay? Let's put in the big rocks first. Put in the big rocks. Then put in the medium-sized rocks. Then put in the small rocks, then put in the sand. When you do it that way, everything fits. Everything fits. So if you feel like you don't have time, there's probably a couple clues here. Number 1, you're not prioritizing your time around your big rocks properly. You haven't identified your biggest rocks, and you haven't put those on your calendar and honored that time block. So that's the first thing. Really, in your business, what is the most important thing you can be working on right now? And make sure that's on your calendar, or else you will just be putting out fires and you'll be working on the small rocks in the sand instead of the big rocks, okay? The second thing that I see, and it's notorious with entrepreneurs, myself included, right? It's notorious, is we don't take care of ourselves first. We don't fill our own glass first. And so often, the things that you love about life, the things that's fun, the things that you enjoy, you might not be making time for those things. And it's counterintuitive, but if you feel like you don't have enough time, don't tell the story, I'll do it when I have enough time. Don't tell that story. Instead, you want to come back and be like, no, this is my value. This is who I want to be. And I'm going to put that in my calendar first. And then my day is going to help revolve around that. So an entrepreneur that I worked with that I have a lot of respect for, in one season of his life, he loved playing basketball, and he realized he was running this huge successful business and he wasn't playing any basketball. And it was one of his favorite things. So what did he do? He made sure that he scheduled 3 times to play basketball throughout the week. And then that was the first thing he put on his calendar, and then everything else he put around those spots. Look, if you're not feeding your own energy, if you're not feeding your own heart, if you're not enjoying the journey, then you will burn out. And a huge sign of burnout is feeling like you don't have enough time. So if you're struggling with not having enough time, take 5 minutes, and I want you to identify what is your biggest priority in business. Is it on the calendar? What is your biggest priority in your personal life for you relaxing and having fun? And put that at least one time, put it on the calendar and commit to it ruthlessly, and watch how your feeling of time will expand. Okay, so we dove into that. So let's go on to the 4th big idea on this. The 4th big idea is the difference between reacting and creating. When I work with business owners, one of the first things that we work on together is me asking the question, how can you work a day less every week and scale your profitability? How can we work a day less and then 2 days less every week? And so the first thing I'm going to do is like, how can we get if they don't have weekends back, get that back. If they don't have their evenings, if they're unbalanced with their family or whatever, get their evenings back. And then it's like, okay, how do we get Fridays back so you can take all of Friday off? And it forces us to think in a way about developing systems, leadership, and delegation. And so for you, if you're feeling like you don't have time, then my question for you is most of your time spent reacting to things, or are you instigating things? Are you reacting or instigating? If you're in the reaction seat, then you're probably not focused on your top priorities or committed to making them the top priorities. And you're probably not leading or instigating or creating. So coming back to this, reacting versus creating. Look, if you're in the reacting realm, if you're here, then I promise you're going to feel like you don't have time. If you're creating, you can create time. You literally can create time. And so I can't dive into this too much, but I want you to be thinking about how can everything flow from you creating, from you being the catalyst. How can you reduce the number of inputs that require your reaction so you can stay as the business owner in the place where you are creating and instigating other people's reaction? You're supposed to be the leader. You're the one leading. And so if you're the one reacting, then whatever you're reacting to is leading you. You're not leading it. But if you're the one that's creating the system, if you're the one dictating how, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but dictating and saying like, look, this is going to happen, and you're in that driver's seat, then suddenly your time is going to feel a lot more expansive. All right, so let's dive into the 5th big idea, which is about business efficiency. So we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. So with business efficiency, This is just really, really true for business owners. Couple things. Number one, you need to be, instead of reacting to the stuff that's not 80/20, you need to be focused on creating the 80/20 thing and then letting other people do the reaction to the stuff that's not 80/20. Delegation, and then making sure that there's a clear decision process so that when you are reacting, it's very clear on what is needed from you and what decision is needed from you so that you can make the decision and move on. So your reaction doesn't have to be caught up in weeks and months and months and months, but it can just be a clean, like, boom, quick reaction. You can do it in 30 seconds to 5 minutes, and then you can move on. And so understanding your number one priority and where you really need to be, delegating the stuff that is demanding your reaction, and creating clean boundaries so that you're not reacting to stuff that's not 80/20 in your business, that's not the most important stuff in your business. And then you making sure that when stuff does come across your plate, that you've trained your people to relate to you in such a way that when it comes to you, you can make a fast reaction, a fast decision around it, instead of it being a long, drawn-out process. So they've pre-framed your thinking. Even they really are just coming to you from like, okay, here's the situation, here's what I think, and here's the pros and cons. What do we do? What's the decision? And so setting it up that way, so it's really powerful for you. Cruising along. Finally, the last one is your way of being. And this is a huge thing that I talk about quite a bit, so I can't riff on this too long here. I want you to consider this. There's two different positionalities I can take. So let me demonstrate this on the iPad really quick. Look, if someone is looking at this 6, right, from this angle, and then if someone is looking at the 6 from this angle, they're going to see two different things, right? This person's going to see the 6, and this person's going to see actually a 9. And so what I mean by that is we get to choose our position. We get to choose our positionality and what we see from that positionality. And so there's two different positionalities as you relate to time. You can relate to time from the position of, I am that I do not have enough time. That can be where you stand, and that's how you look at time. That's how you look at your life. I am that I do not have enough time. I know that's a weird sentence, but hang with me, because this is way of being stuff, and it's super, super powerful. You can step into that position, or you can step into the position that I am that I have plenty of time, or I am that I create time. I am that I do not have time is one position, and you're going to view reality in one way. I am that I create time, or I am that I have plenty of time, is a different reality, and it is a different position, and it's going to create a different view and experience of reality. And so if right now you're feeling tight on time, if you're feeling overwhelmed by time, one of the biggest, cleanest, simplest shifts that you can make right now is write down in your journal and around you for a little while, I am that I have plenty of time, or I am that I have enough time, or I am that I create time. And then return to that declaration, not an affirmation. You're not affirming that something is true. You're just declaring that that is how you are, okay? You're just declaring that that is your position. That is your perspective. And when you declare that perspective, I am that I have plenty of time. I am that I create time. Just see what happens over the next couple of weeks, because just that 5-minute shift over the next couple of weeks is going to change how you relate to time itself, and that's going to actually free up a ton of time for you. Look, time is relative, and this is the last thing I'll leave you with. Time is relative. A second watching a movie or a minute watching a movie goes by like that. A minute touching a hot stove is eternal torture, okay? Time is relative. So honestly, how you are able to relate to time is more important than your schedule. It's more important than your calendar. It's more important than anything. Because time is relative, depending on what is happening, what that means is you can change your positionality to create incredible connection, incredible impact in a very short amount of time, in a very short amount of relative time. For example, if your position is that you need to have an hour-long call with your clients to have a powerful call, then all of your calls to be powerful need to last an hour. If your position is that you can have a powerful call in 5 minutes, then guess what? You can have a powerful call in 5 minutes. And you will start to go to work to make sure that becomes a reality in your life. What I'm trying to say here at the end of the day is just try on the positionality. the difference between I am that I do not have enough time. There's that position and that perspective and that view, and that's going to give you, having that and standing there is going to give you a certain type of reality. And then there's the position of I am that I create time. And having that and standing there is going to give you a certain reality. And at the end of the day, time is relative, is a lot more flexible than you might think. And this is how there's some people out there that are running multiple businesses and still having a free time. So anyway, I hope this video has served you on helping you on taking back your time and how to take back your time. Most of these things you can implement in 5 minutes. Pick one from the list and have a go at it and see if it serves you. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.